All right, hey everybody, welcome back to the Shed. I'm Troy Shaw. With me again is Dave Griffiths. How's it going, Dave?
Great. Well, I guess if you have to ask, tax time's coming up and I'm not prepared, but yeah, I have another month, so I'll probably just drink a beer and procrastinate as usual. How about you, Troy?
Man, my taxes have been done. I've got my money and I've already spent it.
We see,
I've got a bunch of kids,
so
well, I don't have to, man. I got a bunch of kids, man.
Is this actually scripted, or are y'all actually reading this script? You sound like you're reading it. I just completed my taxes.
Let's try.
I don't know, Troy. Tell me about your taxes.
Well, we just we'll take it from the top. But yeah, we just got points that we can't hit on. All right, so we'll take it from the top.
We gonna start over?
Right.
No, that was great. Keep that.
Yes,
all right.
I will be doing my taxes in a month.
Who's that in the background? Who's that talking back there? I think we can just keep on going. What the hell? Who cares?
Right, I'll probably just drink a beer and procrastinate as usual. How about you, Troy?
I'll just drink a beer with you, I guess.
All right.
I'll drink to that.
All right. Well,
how was your San Sabbath weekend?
it was good. It was like not relaxing at all, pretty much.
How's my little man, David Lee? Lennon doing these days?
He's doing great, man. He's already really playing the guitar really well.
He's a beautiful boy, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
He's got the good-looking thing.
Well, let's get to our guest real quick. Derrick Dutton is our guest today in the Shed, and he's got a beautiful little boy also.
Yes.
He's a cutie for sure.
He's got a pretty mom.
Are you the father?
I am the father. Yes. That's a very, very, very legitimate question.
Well, how's it going, Derrick? Talk about you.
Hey. Dave, how are you, brother?
Well, welcome to the Shed, Derrick. As you know,
Dave likes to stick to the script.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Welcome to the Shed, Derrick. Troy and I have created this podcast, as you know, to draw attention to the local music scene and provide a venue for artists to let us know what's going down. What's going down with you?
Man, just busy being a dad these days, and just trying to be the best dad I can. And actually, I have twin girls on the way, so my dad power is fixing to become superhuman-like.
Yeah, you got twins on the way.
Twin girls.
Twin girls.
Yes.
And what's really cool is my boy's named Lennon, and he has twin girls, and one of
The girls is going to be Lennon.
Yeah. So we're going to hook them up.
Yeah.
Put them together.
Yeah.
And they'll probably be badass musicians too.
Right.
Maybe they can start a band.
Yeah. But first of all, you better raise him right, and then he'll be able to ask for my daughter's hand. Well,
that's gonna be tough.
He's gonna be a player.
A player. Yeah.
So he'll be like, hey baby, you want to go out and get some coffee?
Hey, let's go see some music.
All right.
Okay.
Where did you grow up?
Portland, Oregon.
And when did you come to Texas?
In '95.
So what brought you to Texas?
How did that happen? Started off. Let me go back about 20 years from that. My parents were Haight-Ashbury hippies, legit Haight-Ashbury
I've seen
hippies.
pictures of your dad
from San Fran.
From San Francisco.
Yeah. My wife's from San Francisco.
Oh man, my dad and mom were big time involved in that scene, and my dad actually was a high school dropout. He was a draft dodger, and just living that whole cultural revolution that was going on at that time. And when that kind of thing faded away, they moved to Portland. In 1972, I was born.
Usually, they moved to Canada.
Right. Well, there was also along the migration to Canada, there was a bunch that stopped in Portland, even Eugene, because Eugene, Oregon is a big hippie town too. Yeah. Still is, but they're just not legit hippies.
It's
they're just
kind of college town.
College town. And then a lot of them in the Northwest, up through Seattle, all the way up to Canada. But my dad and my mom camped out in Portland. And my dad was a very talented guitar player. And he was in several bands and kind of honing his craft as I was born and kind of going through as I was starting to grow up. And he got to be in a band called Sky River. And Sky River was a pretty popular band in Portland that was being scouted by Capricorn and Warner Brother Records. This was probably about 76, 75.
Capricorn was a great label, man.
It really was.
It was like home to some of my favorite bands, Southern rock bands.
Southern rock and roll bands, and they were a Southern rock and roll band actually out of Northwest. And you see some of the pictures, Troy, on Facebook. There's some pretty legit pictures and legit looking. You're talking like Allman Brothers-esque look. Very cool. They had their own sound. They weren't trying to be another, Leonard Skinner. I can't believe I'm drawing a blank on that. They're
Well,
not.
they were home to
thing.
like Sea Level, Dixie Dregs, a lot of those great bands.
Exactly. So you start to go, and as that movement was happening, the 80s were fastly approaching, and the Capricorn wasn't ready to pull the trigger on another Southern rock and roll band. They already pretty much done with the Marshall Tucker thing, and it was coming to an end. The 80s were here, which was the punk, the pop, the 80s thing that started kind of really taking. So it never happened. My dad then left. Sky River kind of broke up, and my dad and my mom separated ways. And my mom, this is kind of a random thing. My mom was schizophrenic, and she vanished in 70.
That's not random.
79. Yeah. So she vanished, and haven't seen or heard from her since. That's a whole other podcast.
That.
No, it's totally cool. And then my dad, since the band kind of fell apart, and he had nowhere else to go, he actually got his drug addiction and drugs himself, and actually became one of the bigger cocaine dealers in Portland, Oregon at that time. So my mom vanished, and my dad and I were pretty much growing up on the streets of Portland, and my dad became a pretty big cocaine dealer, led into his heroin abuse, and so I was pretty much raised by a heroin addict for pretty much even till this day, because my dad's a recovering heroin user, and he's on methadone, been a methadone patient for many, many years.
He's okay?
Yeah, he's okay. Yeah, he's got his mental capacities to him and stuff, and actually his...
Where does he live now?
He lives in Portland.
Okay.
Yeah, he still lives in Portland in a hotel, kind of a... He lives on the...
Like a halfway house type of
type thing. Yeah, like where there's a hotel with really cheap housing.
Well, if you got to be a junkie, that's a good time to be a junkie, because
it's like a junkie capital, man.
Exactly.
It really is. And unfortunately, my uncle, who was another big inspiration on me musically, because he just was like kind of like what you were saying earlier, was his record collection is just killer. And growing up, I remember with Uncle Dennis being around, and it was my dad and Uncle Dennis listening to music, and us throwing the frisbee around as kids growing up. But anyway, he passed away when I was in 7th grade. He OD'd and died on heroin. So heroin's been a big, strong pull and emotional thing in my life, and it's kind of led to this kind of how I play musically, just because of the soul and kind of why I play music. But so anyway,
you would never think that looking at you, and you seem like such an upstanding citizen. You got a great family. I mean, just looking at you, you would never think that was your past.
Right, and I tell my story. I love telling my story. I embrace my story. People tell me I should write a book, and I've got tons of people that I hold close, and they're friends that love the story and tell me what I've done. It's like, man, we've all got stories. We've all had struggles.
Well, at some point you still ended up in Texas. So how did that go?
Okay, I know I took it.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
So my whole thing was I was getting the heck out of Portland. I was about ready to I had to get the fuck out of that town. Yeah. And I had no idea what I was going to do. I didn't know how to go to college. I didn't know if I was going to go to college. I didn't know about work.
How old were you at this time?
I was approaching 18.
Okay.
Yeah. So actually, go back a year. Actually,
you stayed in school, though.
I stayed in school. I enlisted in the Navy when I was a junior in high school. And I came to my dad and I said, I need you to sign this piece of paper because I'm going in the military when I graduate from high school. So I enlisted in the Navy when I was 17 years old, and when I graduated a year later, I was in boot camp 2 weeks after commencement, walking across the stage. San Diego. Yeah, I spent 5 years in the Navy. When I got out of the Navy, I moved to Wyoming and worked for my friend's family business, and kind of hung out there. And I was trying to apply to a bunch of Pac-10 schools. I wanted to get back to Oregon, the West Coast somewhere. And a buddy of mine, Hugh Fidel, the Fidel family here in Waco, kind of a prominent family, been around for a long time, got a street named after him and stuff.
Elvis hung with him.
Yeah, exactly. And his cousin is actually Shannon Elizabeth, the girl that was on American Pie. She's done a bunch of Hollywood. She's Shannon Fidel. But anyway, so I met him up there. He turned me on to Baylor, and I was like, I know nothing about Baylor, and I'm not Baptist. And so I ended up applying to Baylor because I thought Texas was cool, and I got approved to get in. And I packed everything up in my car and broke up with my girlfriend and moved down to Texas, and that was 95, and then I started Baylor a couple months later. So
you've been here 20 years.
I've been here. What year is it?
It's
yeah,
2000.
Yeah, you're right.
Time goes by fast, doesn't it?
Well, you know what? It is Pi Day today.
It is
3/14/15. So you came down here.
Yeah.
You obviously met a gal.
Well,
got married, had some kids.
Well,
or I had one kid and have a couple in the
Pump the
oven.
brakes. Pump the brakes.
All right, go ahead.
I was in a relationship, and married previously for 4 years, no kids.
Okay.
Got a divorce. And then I wasn't going to get married again. I was going to be a guitar player and do my, my day job thing.
So you were playing when you were still in high school, obviously, right?
No.
You never took up the guitar till when?
Okay. Let's go back another 20 years and see if I can keep the story on track here.
All right.
3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. 3rd grade, I picked up flute. I played flute. That was my not skin flute, Troy. I know you want to say that.
No. Troy doesn't.
You can read my mind.
He's over here licking. He's licking his lips, going, "Oh, that's so good."
No, Troy plays the upright organ.
Stand-up organ.
So flute. So I and the reason I picked flute in 3rd grade because that's where all the girls were. Seriously.
So you were going to be another flute rock star.
I was going to be a flautist. Yeah, electrical flautist. So 3rd, 4th, and 5th, I played flute and kind of got the basis of music. And the cool thing about Portland, Oregon is that they're really big into arts and music and stuff like that. So they, as opposed to some of the Texas schools, when they start their kids out, they start them like on a recorder. I mean, we were learning drums and saxophone and like kick-ass instruments at a very young age. So 3rd, 4th grade, 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade was flute. Middle school, I switched to saxophone. And I played sax, tenor sax, for 3 years and continued to. I love that instrument. That instrument is just so badass.
Can you still play it now?
I still can. I can actually play flute easier than I can sax. I started kind of doing that thing with the saxophone, and God, I love that instrument. And that kind of translates into how I play, say, guitar today. But I put that down.
Need one?
I'm good. I need a drink, though. So saxophone, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. After that, I put down playing an instrument, and I focused on athletics. And then finally I joined the Navy, and I worked, I'm a jet mechanic in the Navy for 5 years in the first Gulf War. I got stories from that. You fast forward to the Wyoming and then moved to Texas. When I was in Wyoming, I actually bought my first acoustic. And I've always, just the way that I approached guitar, I just always had a way of, I just knew that if I could just, anyway, when I picked up acoustic, I did nothing but run scales and play literally freaking 8 to 10 hours a day. And I played probably 8 to 10 hours a day for about 2 years. Funny thing is, my dad and I, we were going to see a movie. We were going to see Crossroads.
Oh, yeah, with Ralph Macchio.
19, what year did that come out? 85,
yeah,
84?
It was 85. With Steve Vai.
Yes. And who did all the music on that movie?
Well, that was Rycooter.
Yes. And what's my little boy's name?
That's Matt back here, by the way. He's
is that where you got the name from?
Joining us.
My little boy's name's Rye. I named him after Rycooter.
That's cool.
I love Rycooter. So you talk about influences. Oh, good Lord, I love Rycooter. Everything about that guy is just to me. So, yeah, there's all that.
So when you came to Waco, did you get into a band right away, or did you just what did you do when you first came to Waco after you graduated Baylor, or were you in a band?
No, I was in Baylor. I was going to Baylor. I was 25 years old, and I was doing the 8 to 10 hours a day, and I would go down to. Do you remember Blues Connection down there on the corner of Spratt-A-Tech? George Spratt used to own that little.
I remember the name.
Blues Connection dive on the corriver of
Is it on
Austin
Franklin
and where Treff's. Kind of that corner right there where it's called.
Yeah,
I think it's River. It's Ice House or something like that.
Yeah.
It's Street Ice House right now. That used to be called Blues Connection, and an old black guy named George Spratt owned it, and he would have an open mic night, and it was like you go in there, and I was a little 20-some-year-old white boy, and I wasn't intimidated by the environment. But here's another funny story: I was at Baylor, and it's the first part of the semester, and everybody gets up and kind of says, what year are you, where are you from, what's some of the public service that you do, and everybody's like, oh, I go to church, blah blah blah, and I do this and I do that, and then they're like, I hop up and I was like, my name's Derrick, I'm a junior, I play in a blues band and I drink beer. I sat back down, and I think
and the girls came a running, huh?
That went over like a turd and punch bowl.
Expelled immediately.
Why don't you play us a little bit?
You would like to play a little bit of slide?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So you're in Waco now.
I am.
What was your first band when you are, real band?
My first oh shit moment. Sprat Attack.
Okay.
Sprat Attack. Doing my little, going to the open blues mics there, and next thing you know, I'm playing there every, whatever night it was. It might have been like a Thursday night or something like that. And the big moment that was like I've arrived is when George Spratt handed me $15, and I got paid for the night. And that was really cool. And then I got to basically be the only white guy in the band, which I just absolutely adored. I love that, just that element of it. And we would play all these different clubs and juke joints around Texas and Central Texas and stuff, where it was just all black clubs. And
how did you get involved with Kristen Kelly? Because that's pretty much country, I guess. Yeah. There's a little southern rock in there, but it's a country band.
Yeah, it's funny because I played with Tony after Sprat Attack. I ended up getting a gig with Tony Calhoun, and played with Tony for years. And you did a podcast with Tony, and I love Tony. Tony's family to me. He taught me everything. He's the guy that I hold. But we played 7 years doing 4-hour shows, cover band stuff, a power trio, blues, funk band for many, many, many years, all over the place. And then we had, John Coots on drums, one of the hotter drummers around, and we were a kick-ass power trio. Well, then we burned that out. Tony was just like, I can't do 4-hour shows, and and I ventured off and playing with a country band, a girl named Donna Beckham.
Yeah.
I played Donna Beckham for a couple years.
I did some music videos for her.
Exactly. You did.
Yeah.
And that's when but I was a blues player. I wasn't a country guy. I just never really, I get minor 2, minor 3, and minor 6, but I was a 1, 4, 5 funky soulful blues guy. That's all I ever wanted to be. Right. And I kind of progressed in the country thing, and then I'm not a chicken picker kind of guy. I just want to be a soulful, tasty white boy. That's it. So I played with Donna for a couple years, a couple other little bands, and then Kristen was this hot chick running around, and I just got out of a divorce, and we were friends, and I just kind of met that way. I met her sister Kimberly, who's also a very talented girl, and so you fast forward to that, Kristen starts her own band with a guy named Joe Churchill, and they start Modern Day Drifters, and they were kind of getting their thing going, doing their own writing originals, and then playing covers, and starting to kind of make some headway into this Texas music scene, the Americana scene here. And I'm like, how are they getting all these in these venues and playing these opening shows? And Kristen would, and at this point, I was done with Tony Calhoun, and I was done with all these other, and I was just kind of playing here and there with whoever and not committing. And I didn't want to commit, but Kristen was trying to approach me to play with her. She was asking me, hey, and I didn't think they were good enough yet. I didn't want to get up there. I was playing with Tony Calhoun and John Coots, and we were a kick-ass power trio. I can't go down a notch.
Right.
And so I was like, in a time where didn't have anything going on, and I was like, hey, would you guys mind if I come and play with you tonight? And I did, and next thing you know, I was with them.
What year was that? Because when you guys played Brazos Nights, I don't remember, 2009, I guess. How was that about the time you started?
Is that the one that shows on the Waco City channel?
Yeah.
All the time? Was that 2000? Yeah, it had to be 2009.
Yeah.
Maybe 2002, 2010, 2009. This was way before that.
Really?
No, okay. At least a couple years before. Probably, I'd say 2006.
Okay.
I mean, okay, not a long time. But
and how long did you play with her?
Shit, 2006 to, how old's my boy? 3 years old. He was born 11, so 5 years. So 5 years. So about 2006 to 2011. Because I remember my last gig with her was in Houston at the Shinerbach Festival. My wife it was October. She was 8 months pregnant.
You played at the Shinerbach Fest?
No, Ziegenbach. Sorry, I got my wrong box.
Yeah. Was she on a label at that time, or
no?
How did that? What happened there?
No.
Because I guess she signed with a label in Nashville and went to Nashville. I mean, what happened?
Let me take a deep breath on this one. She basically was a first-round lottery draft pick for Sony Records. She couldn't have signed a better deal with what she had. How that happened was we actually played a benefit at Billy Bob's in Texas. And it was on a Sunday. I think Roger Krieger was on the bill, and Stoney LaRue, Eli Young band, who's just kicking butt in the music scene, right, and on the big Nashville music charts and that type of stuff right now. And there was a guy named Paul Overstreet that was there. You can just Wikipedia, Google Paul Overstreet. He's written like 25 Nice. Nicely done. 25 #1 hits. He's written some of the ones that are just like that you want to almost vomit at with country. Like She Thinks My Tractor's Sexy, stuff like that. But he's also written Digging Up Bones. He wrote Digging Up Bones and a bunch of really cool stuff.
Yeah.
But he's a dick.
He's all over the map.
I just, God,
You mean that in the best sense.
Right. My first interaction with him was at this benefit, and he's going on before us. And no, we just got off stage because we weren't that big. We weren't going to go before him, of course, which is correct. And he was like, "Hey, you got any fingernail clippers?" And I was like, "No," because he had some fingernail that had given him guitar issues or whatever. So he had to clip it. I was like, "No, I don't." So that's pretty much when it started. So Paul Overstreet's like this big Nashville guy. And we're partying backstage, and boy, we partied hardcore on a Sunday for this benefit. It was great. We were submerged. It was Dirk Bentley's deal. That's what it was. It was Dirk Bentley's benefit for.
Wow, that's big.
One of the. He's such a cool. He really is a cool dude.
I heard he is.
And he's just real accessible. It's a really good. He's just one of those guys that you root for him. And he's big, and he loves the Texas scene as well. Anyway, so we're partying balls back there, and Paul kind of had a fan, kind of. Started digging on Kristen, learning her story, and next thing you know, they exchange numbers. He invites her up to Nashville, and they end up starting to write songs together. So as I'm playing with Kristen through this time, she would periodically go up to Nashville a few days here and there, and in the meantime, Paul is basically grooming her to set up this record deal and this writing deal and kind of getting all play. And I'm starting to kind of like see all this go down, and with that band, there was a lot of players that came and went. And that's for many reasons. There was players that weren't the right fit. We went through a lot of drummers, but we weren't there yet.
Okay.
This wasn't where the label was coming in and going, plucking you out, plugging you in. It wasn't that at all yet.
Okay.
And matter of fact, I never got to even be a part of that because I was already out. But before all that happened, so it's this whole Nashville thing, and it's kind of that starts snowballing, and you kind of start to see it kind of just starts to roll. Kristen, she kind of starts to distance herself from the band, and we come in for rehearsals, and she's bringing songs to us, and she kind of has to keep some of her songs to herself. You just can't. And the relationship's kind of, with her and me and my wife, because my wife and her are best friends, and it's kind of this very tumultuous kind of. It starts to get kind of rocky. Like Kristen's changing. Nashville's starting to kind of really, and I can't blame her because, dude, she's got her eyes on the prize, man. She's got Nashville that's like. She's writing with like some kick-ass writers. She's getting these appointments with these people as far as management deals. She gets this guy named John Grady involved in management. John Grady has brought up Keith Urban. He's brought up Miranda Lambert. He's a good dude. I met that guy and he was completely like sweet. Paul, like again, he's a dick, and I hope he hears this. He probably didn't even care. But those guys are out there. It takes all kinds. So it kind of as this whole. Kristen's taken off, and and she would come back to Texas, and we were doing 100, 150 dates a year in Texas here, traveling all over the place. It was whether we were playing, opening up for Dwight Yoakam.
Was this your job? I mean,
no.
So what were you doing? What were you doing at the time? What was your daytime job?
I was a pharmaceutical rep.
Okay.
I still am today.
Yeah.
Which allowed me the flexibility to be able to take off early, and kind of be able to do that. And I basically balance and manage my personal vacation days. Or if they would if the band had to get there for an early sound check, they would get there, and then I would just basically hop on stage, grab my guitar, and go. There was a lot of that. And, and the bass player, I would have to, load the bass player up in my car. I got a company car, I'd have to pay for gas. So we would all hop up, and that could have got ugly. Shit. Stepping on the rake the wrong way.
It was,
Oh, you got my sack.
That's what happens when you record in the shed. You never know what kind of tool is going to come out your head.
Yeah, that's a great calendar, by the way. For all you out there in podcast land, this 2000. That is pretty.
September 2000.
That was a good month and a good year.
And we've been through all 12 months. So
it's time to start over again.
So yeah, this whole Nashville thing, as I'm playing with Kristen, and man, God, we played. I pretty much got to play with her all the great venues. I got to play Austin City Limits, opening up for Dwight. That's a $40 million venue.
Damn.
And just me and you'll see a picture every once in a while. I think you might have seen, maybe you may, I don't know. Not that it's all about me.
Well, today it is.
Yeah,
today it's all about you.
Today it's all about
me.
It's
You opened up for Dwight.
You opened up for Dwight several times, and You gotta love it when some of his guys come up and give you a compliment after a gig. But that was another night. But anyway, yeah, Austin City Limits, man, playing that stage. It's the same one. There's 3 entities to Austin City Limits. There's obviously the Music Fest, which they basically bought the naming rights, so they can call that Music Fest Austin City Limits. There's the tapings, and then there's the live music venue, where there's all those great shows that go on down there at the W, I think is what it is, the hotel.
Oh yeah.
So I got to play that, opening up for Dwight. It's pretty cool.
That's cool.
So yeah, we got to play all kinds of great venues with Kristen as this whole Nashville thing is happening. And then it comes down, we actually did a showcase for Sony. And it was at Billy Bob's. And it was a bunch of people there, a bunch of Sony people there. And there's actually a guy that was really big on American Idol. I think he came in 2nd place. His name's Casey James. He's from the Fort Worth area.
Long-haired guy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I remember.
And like, matter of fact, he loves Ian Moore. Like, he does some of the Ian Moore. He's got a great voice. Anyway, he was there picking up her and him at the same time.
Talk about the end. How did that all end?
You had to go there, didn't you?
I did. Well, there's an end to every story, and we got to get to the end.
There
is,
I know, right? So the end is different because the end was my last gig with her was the Ziegenbach Fest in October, and we had our baby boy, and comes up December, we were actually supposed to go play Steamboat Music Fest, which we played it a couple years earlier, which is a fantastic music fest up in Steamboat, Colorado. It's a great, I've been very lucky to be a part of that.
It's a big red dirt kind of
Oh, it's huge. It's huge. It's like a big love fest of just Americana. They're bringing in more Nashville guys now and stuff like that. But, I was trying to trying to arrange accommodations, with my wife and my newborn. And she wasn't willing to make that work. And, I wasn't going to leave my wife with a newborn. I just couldn't be partying balls up in Steamboat, Colorado with my newborn back home and my wife. I just didn't. Maybe if I was 21 years old, I would have left her and done that. Yeah. But not at this point in my life. It's just, I cherish this woman. So that was pretty much, and they actually had Shania Twain's guitar player replace me. And it was funny because when they were doing stuff, I was getting texts actually as they were playing in Steamboat, and they were like, dude, this is not the same without you, which is great to hear that as a guitar player. Yeah. So she continues to do her thing. I'm no longer in the band. She goes to Nashville and signs a major Sony multi-album recording deal. You could actually go to the webpage, Sony Nashville, and there was Brad Paisley, Carrie Underwood, and Kristen. And it was awesome. But we kind of, she had a relationship that kind of went south that we were involved in, and just didn't.
Can you hear that?
I hope you can. That would sound great. There's it's a faint sound of
that's a cloudburst.
Of watering the grass. So
so what happens to beer after you drink it?
Exactly. It's being filtered.
You can't buy beer. You can only rent it.
Exactly. And you're peeing out your memory. That's what you're doing. So
peed a lot of memory away.
Yeah. So the relationship that she was in went south, and she moves off to Nashville, and we just didn't really. My wife and I were like done. Didn't want anything to do with her. And there's a bunch of stories in there as to how she got the record deal, and there's a bunch of assumptions and theory, just all kinds of ugliness that you would think that would happen, almost kind of like something similar on that Nashville TV show that's out now. And I was very much all involved in the birth of that and how it kind of took place, and even till today. I know that she's struggling. We've actually become friends again and kind of forgotten a lot of that and kind of talked about some of the bad things that happened, and not bad things that happened, but the relationships that kind of went south because of the whole Nashville thing. And people feel like they're getting used musically, or getting used financially, or getting used relationship-wise for her own.
Were you hurt or upset at that time that she didn't try to pull you to Nashville?
Never. We had to talk several times because man, there'd be some night when you're doing 150 shows and you're playing with opening up for whoever, you're playing these great venues, and I was at that point I was the only guitar player, and there was a guy, Steve Cargill, on bass, and then this guy Clint Simmons on drums, who's like just one of the funkiest, baddest mofos around. God, he just had twins. Anyway, and we had a keyboard player. Man, we were a smoking ass band. We just had the potential just to be like really a legit smoking ass band. And we would have these great nights, and she was like, I want to be able to pay you what you can get so you can quit your job and just do this. And I'm like, it sounds great. And my kind of head is still in the clouds, and I'm like, I just don't see it being there. Just don't see $100,000 a year being there, $100,000 a year being there. the big cats in Nashville don't make that. You know, they're making $253 union pay every gig.
Right.
Session guys, you know, they camp out, and if they're Session A players that, you know, somebody dies and they're actually able to get in that slot, then they do pretty well. But it's just the money's not there.
Yeah, it wasn't worth leaving your or taking your family to Nashville. You know,
nope.
Quitting your job that you got a good job. But just talk about Tony Calhoun, playing with him. Who are you playing with now? Because I know a couple of years ago I shot some video of you guys with Tony Calhoun and stuff. Talk a little bit about Tony.
Love Tony. Tony gives me chills. Tony is he was the guy that sat down with me when I was young, mid-20s, and he had actually had a falling out with his guitar player at that point, and I was an up-and-coming, promising guitar player, but I was just a blues guy, and Tony sat down with me and showed me the movement of songs and chord progressions, and I was actually the last person he's ever actually done that for. You just don't tie Tony down. He's just one of those guys, as you probably can imagine, you just don't tie him down.
Yeah.
And
it was hard to tie him down for when we got him in here.
Yeah. You should hear the story about our recording.
And we had barbecue.
Yeah. Oh, you profiled, huh? Yeah. I mean, it was at a point where, God, he was a god. He was a god to me. He was my Eric Clapton. He was my everything, and he taught me. And I was willing to do anything. I was willing to load in all the gear for the PA, break it down. I was willing to do all kinds of drugs. I was willing to play anywhere, do anything, and I was a sponge. I soaked it up, and I basically had this open canvas of one of the best bass players you'll ever see that never made it super, super big, and this kick-ass drummer had this open canvas of just being able to go in there and learn and make mistakes and develop my tone and have Tony just get in my face and say, you better play it, white boy, go, you know. And of course, one of my favorite I tell everybody this quote was when I was a young guy, and the thing about being a guitar player is that I always kind of like would just jump out and just if you get to be, I love Albert Collins too, man. He's aggressive and you just kind of just attacked it, as opposed to like some guys that would play blues, they would finesse it, kind of go into it and tell a story and build it. So I was kind of essentially blowing my load early. Tony, he goes, man, I sure hope you don't fuck like you play guitar. I was like, oh wow. So yeah, I still use that quote till today.
Yeah,
that's a great one. And I was like, well, he's probably correct. But since as I've gotten older, it's all about, you know, taking your time, less is more type of thing. Yeah. So, but Tony is just, oh man. Tony would do these runs with a guy named Frankie Lee. Frankie Lee was on the Ike and Tina Turner Review. Robert Cray was in Frankie Lee's band in the 70s.
No kid.
And so Tony would do runs up and down the West Coast with this Frankie Lee, old soul singer. God, the guy was just, you ever seen that where just like you go to a show and they could stay on the one for like 3 hours and the guy up front could just tell a story and sing and just take you to church? That was Frankie Lee. Right. He could it was a soul singer. You could stay on the one, he would tell a story and just like blow your mind. But anyway, they went up. Tony was the bass player. They went up to Portland, did a show in Portland. They picked up a guitar player. His name was Lee Blake. Lee Blake was one of my dad's really good friends. So I didn't know that Lee had played with Tony and Frankie Lee. So I was talking to my dad.
Small world.
Well, it gets better because while I was talking to Tony, he's like, yeah, we picked up a guitar player in Portland, you know, and blah, blah, blah. And my dad's telling me, as I'm telling my dad's, you know, like, who are you playing with nowadays? What's going on? We're playing with this, you know, Tony Calhoun, bass player from Monster. And he goes, dude, I think that Lee Blake played with him up here. And I was like, yeah. So it's kind of funny, this connection that, like, the roots, where I come from. I mean, I grew up around, you know, with John and Val from the New Shoes. You familiar with the New Shoes? Oh man. So great music scene up there. So that's kind of my story thing with Tony. And since then, when I left Tony and go to Kristen, and then done with Kristen, and then just being pretty much a dad. But the cool thing about being a dad and being a musician at the same time is like I'm working with more bands. I could be working with 5 or 6 different bands at any time, which sounds like a lot, but it allows me to kind of pick and choose here and there. I can work with a guy named Adam Hood out of Alabama.
Can you read music?
I don't read. I used to be able to read when I played sax. I'm in the Nashville number system. There's another guy that I play with, Rick Huckabee. out of Nashville who's been with Tracy Lawrence, Tanny Tucker. Tanny Tucker actually fired him and then rehired him. He's got funny ass stories. That guy. This guy is super. If you want to look up some really cool stuff, look up a guy named Rick Huckabee. Out of Nashville. So I mean, I still all work with Adam. I'll work with Rick Huckabee on occasion. Like very rare now when he comes down. Super talented. Good Lord, that's the guy that I would love to play with for a long time. And then Texas Renegade. I'll actually still work with Kimberly Kelly, Kristen's sister, on occasion. Some local. There's really not much local stuff going on. I'm kind of out of town here and there, and just kind of enough to. I'm actually playing more wedding ceremonies where people just hire me for 45 minutes just to play just be me. Make $300 and I'm out of there, and that goes over really, really well.
You know, you told us some great stories, and more than I ever imagined. I never knew you had the story to tell that you told us today, and
I could have got a lot more heavy on that.
Well, that'll be part two.
That'll be part two.
Yeah.
We can we'll keep doing these. We got a long list of people we're going to get in here, but 2 years down the road.
Yeah, for sure. Love what you're doing. This is killer. I hit you up on that in the beginning with the David Zychek interview, and just how cool that really was.
Yeah, it was cool.
Yeah, everybody's got great stories around here, so
Yeah.
that's what we're trying to get to. So you said a lot, probably said too much, or maybe you didn't say enough. I'm not really sure. But anyway,
Let's play it.
let's jam a song real quick.
Okay.